What's the difference between the light meter in your camera and the light meter in an instant meter, a handheld meter? I'm asked this a lot, and how do you use them? Well, you use them in much the same way. The main difference is that your camera measures light that's reflected by or bouncing off whatever it is you have in your composition. You then have your different modes. You have your spot mode, your center weighted, and your evaluative all over mode. And then you have to choose which one works best according to the situation. There isn't a one to use. I've already made videos about these things. There's a link in the text below if you want to go and check them out. I've shown you how spot and all that stuff works. But you have to use your brain to think about it. This is all about thinking. Now, I've also made a video about instant meters, but I haven't done one about the two together, so that's what we're going to be doing now. This measures the light that's landing on. You can take the little cone off the front and then kind of measure reflected light, but what this does, if I hold this in front of my face and point this back towards you guys, it's measuring the light that is landing on my face on this side. That is super accurate, but it's also super fiddly, isn't it? So I thought, well, let's just have a little go. Let's take a few pictures. You never know, if we're really, really lucky, we might find something down here to take a picture of. And, you know, we can just experiment. I can just show you. So what's the difference between this and this? And I really want you to get your head around the fact that there isn't a right, there isn't a wrong. You've got to juggle this all the time. You don't just sort of set something and then that's it. You've got to watch light levels changing, situations changing, and how when you move from one place to another, something might be different. You know, you might find that there's more light somewhere than there is somewhere else, even though in theory it should be the same. So we'll wander around and see if we can find something to take a picture of, shall we? Aren't I just the luckiest guy in the world? Look, you see, walking along the street and we have a supermodel all ready to rock and roll here, ready to have a picture taken. So let's have a look at what happens. Let's try these different metering modes, and I'm not going to go in depth about them as I said earlier, but I'm currently on evaluative. Let's just get a focus on the lovely prow here. Make sure that my exposure compensation is all set to 0. Right, now let me just see if I can hit the video button. This may or may not work in video mode, but let me see. Okay, so I'm filming. As you can see, prow is quite dark in this little bit of video, and that's because of all the sky. And if I move the camera up to the sky towards the sun, you see how it's gone much darker? We're getting a bit more, but when I bring it back to prow, it's lightening it a bit. If I come in closer, this will probably go out of focus, viewers, but I'm hoping, there, you see that exposure change as it's lifted it up? This is the camera trying to force everything to be mid-grey. This is where your instant meter can come in handy. So let's just have a go at taking a shot. I'm on evaluative all over metering mode, which is cool. And if I just shoot a wide, because I quite like the shapes here, we get quite a silhouette-y dark shot, don't we? If I whip it onto center weighted, we've already done this in another film, so I'm not spending ages on it, and see what happens with the same composition. And then I'm going to do one on spot metering with prow right in the middle. Here we go. And as I think you can see as we flick between them, the spot's a little brighter, center weighted's a bit darker, and the evaluative is very dark. This is about finding out which works best for you and what you're doing. But let's try our instant meter, because the camera has just been reading the light that's being reflected by. It's the light that's coming from here, over here, and up this lens. That's what's going on. And when there's sky in the shot, there's a lot more light hitting up into the lens. So poor prow here is kind of in shade. When we came in closer, and we're just cropping here, we've got kind of mid-grey tones. Prow's top is mid-grey. Prow's got quite dark skin, and that kind of would equate to mid-grey if you go to black and white. If we just did a shot with her jeans, they would go pretty much white, but let's just do an instant meter reading. So make sure you've got the same ISO and everything set. I'm just going to take a reading from in front of Prow's nose. Don't bite me. There we go. It's telling me I want 180th of a second at f5.6. It's really simple, isn't it? We then just pop our camera onto manual, whiz round to 180th of a second, set an aperture of, oops, f5.6, there it is. Now it doesn't matter, does it? We've chosen where we're going to expose for. We're going to expose for prow. So if I do a full length shot, like this. Look at that. Look at all that incredible light coming in from behind her. We've manually set the exposure for this area of the shot, and it isn't going to change, is it? No matter what happens. So whether Browne moves, Browne move, do so. There we go. Look, that's cool, right? So we now have Browne movement shot. That's awesome. You see, it hasn't changed the exposure. If I come in closer and just sort of go for that, I kind of like that. I quite like that arm straight down at side thing. I kind of like that. Can you go stand one side a tiny, whoop, that's it. Just go shuffle that way a bit. Turn straight towards me, like you were. Just straight out. That's it. I kind of like that. Focus on Browne. You see we've changed our composition, but the place is the same. The exposure is the same. So we measured the light falling onto Browne. The metering modes are still completely fine. But let's just go and see if we can find somewhere a little bit more tricky. Come on, Browne, let's go and see what we can find. Okay, so here's the scenario. Question to yourself. Is it going to be any different now to how it was over there? What are the rules? Has anything changed? Think on this. We've got a different environment. We've got a much, much brighter area going on here. And I'm trying to expose the video camera to try and catch some of me and some of this brightness so you know what's going on. We've got Browne over here nicely framed up with stuff, and I also love the shot from this angle, which I might have a go at in a moment. But ask yourself the question, use your first building block of photography, this thing. Has anything changed to what was going on over there? It's still complicated for the camera, isn't it? It's probably more so because we've got much more brightness behind. And of course, this is also going to be affected by what you choose to do with your composition. I'm not drunk, it's just there's a bit wobbly down there. I haven't had a drink in ages. Anyway, let's see. I've still got the same exposure set as I had round the corner, a 1/80th at f5.6 using 200 ISO, which we set with our incident meter. I'm going to take the shot and see what happens, and I have a pretty good idea. While I'm taking it, have a think. What do you think will happen if I do a head and shoulders type portrait of Browne? What result do you think we'll get here? Did you get that right? Extremely high key. Why is that? Because the exposure is the same here to how it was over there. What was behind Browne over there? Yeah, exactly. The edge of one of these things, wasn't it? A beach hut. So there was a background. Now Browne's background is all this brightness out here in the sky. So what have we got? We got this very, very high key look, which I think is really rather cool. Has anything changed? Remember, I still have the manual exposure set on the camera. Let's get our instant meter. It's still set on 200 ISO, same things, 180th. So if I meter from this side of Browne back to the camera, this is the light falling on her. It's telling me there is a slight difference. It's just telling me it's 180th f8, not f5.6. There is slightly more light here. Why would that be? Come on, exercise this thing. Exercise the brilliant brain. Why would there be more light? She's not in shade. There's concrete here, there's sun there, and some of that light is bouncing back up into her face. It's acting like a bit of a reflector. So it's giving us a stop more light. Let's set that onto the camera. Let's set an aperture of f8. If I can figure out how you work cameras. You really should have got someone who knew what they were doing to come on YouTube. Right, here we go, f8. Now if I shoot that same shot with Browne, we're going to have, and I'm just going to include a little bit of what's going on to her right, so you can see it's different. Again, which do you prefer? So we've got more detail, or we got the high key one. It's like your call. Or what would you need to do to make her a silhouette? Exposed for the background. Exactly. Well thought out. How would we do this? Well, you could still do it with your incident meter or your camera. There isn't a right way with this, guys. You've really got to understand it. But how are we going to expose for the background and not Browne? Much harder. I would probably turn the instant meter on its back and just hold it out here and take a reading, which tells me I'm on f16 to get that background, still at 180th, or I can change my shutter speed. Let's leave it at f8 and waz the shutter speed up to around about 1,000th of a second. So, manual exposure, 1,000th of a second. What are we going to have? Think. While I take the shot, we've got a prow-shaped silhouette, but the background's exposed. Do you see what I mean? We can still do this with the camera. If I stick it onto aperture priority, I can't see, I've got my glasses on. There we go. And I use evaluative metering mode, same sort of composition. I'm just framing prow inside inside that kind of bit of beach hut. We've got a silhouette, haven't we? Because evaluative is seeing everything. This is, you know, thinking, guys. So how about if we use center weighted? If I've got prow in the middle, that in theory should make it about right. But it hasn't actually made a great deal of difference. It's a little bit brighter, but not a lot. Why is that? It depends on the area of the camera. None of these things are set in stone. You've got to think your way through all of this stuff and change things. How about if we use spot metering? Again, if I spot meter for the sort of shadow area on this side of prow's neck, sort of in here, just below the ear, that sort of area, you know, you got to think it's a mid-grey area. So I'm going to kind of spot meter in there, and what have we got? Here's our result this time. It's brightened it up. These are all tricky exposures. Relax, prow. You can go and have that big fat cigarette now. She doesn't smoke. It's all right, I was being really cruel. Think about this. It's like you have to use your brain. You have to think these things through. There is no right way. There is no correct way to reach Rome. There are many ways to reach Rome. It's about playing around and trying things out to see what happens. So spot metering is not a great idea all the time. I mean, I've just had another thought. Let's just see what happens if I spot meter. Sorry, prow. Can you just come into the sunlight a little bit? That's cool. Just kind of look off over that way a bit. There we go. Now, if I try spot metering off prow's jeans, which are white, that's not a mid-tone. I don't know what will happen. Let's try it. Let's just see. If my camera switched on, it'll help. Now, that has said... Hang on, I'm in manual mode, aren't I? So, let's get this right. What is happening if I meter off them? Lock that exposure. Do you see what I mean? Now, I expected well, it is kind of expected, but I thought it would make the jeans a lot greyer than white, and it's kind of gone black. But then if we actually swap that into black and white, that is pretty accurate, isn't it? You see? Now, another thing with this, I've been doing this for years and I still got fooled looking at the LCD and thinking that didn't do what I expected. It's because I'm out in sunshine, my pupils have dilated and contracted and expanded, and that has messed up how I'm seeing the LCD. Do you see what I mean? This stuff can't think for you. This stuff can't do it for you. But I hope that's been helpful as to, you know, the difference between an incident meter and a reflected meter in the camera. This measures the light that's landing on your subject. This measures the light that is reflected by it and is surrounding it. Should we go and get a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
Come on then, let's go. See you guys.
Bye.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel to be notified each time we upload one of our cool photography videos, or for more great photo tips, workshops and training, come and see us at our website, photographycourses.biz.